Hello, Just History Guy here. I hope everyone's having a great day. Now, in almost every video I've done where I've mentioned the SMT series, someone has commented about where to start in the series as a new fan. And I absolutely love this question because, one, it gives me an excuse to talk about my favorite game series, and two, it means I got someone interested in said series. And it's a very valid question, as there are a lot of entries in this series. I mean, a lot. Now, in the past, I've made videos on my top 10 SMT games and top 5 Persona games. And if you're watching this, you probably watched those videos as well. And while those are my rankings, I haven't had a definitive place to point to and say, hey, watch this for everything I think you should know or consider before getting into SMT. And, well, you guessed it, this is that video now, so strap on in. So, first off, Shin Megami Tensei is a frickin' old series with many titles and iterations. The game series started all the way back in 1987 with Digital Devil Story Megami Tensei. But that's if you start with the games. The series is actually based off of a book series by Aya Nishitani called Digital Devil Story Megami Tensei, which is a trilogy of books that actually released a year earlier in 1986. See, these books inspired the game series and follow Nakajima as he creates a demon summoning program and goes after his bullies, and a whole bunch of shenanigans ensues. And while these books had some success, we're here to talk about the game series that was inspired from them. So with that little bit of history out of the way, let's start with an easy answer that I don't really recommend. You can start with Megami Tensei, the first game, and then play Megami Tensei 2 and work through in order of release. But dear lord, that is a challenging and frankly probably a bore for most people. If you're going to start with an old game because you want the whole series experience, then start with Shin Megami Tensei 1, which is the first game in the rebooted series and timeline and is what really started the Atlus SMT canon. These were the games we think about when we think of the main series, being SMT 1, 2, 3 Nocturne, Strange Journey, SMT 4, its sequel series for Apocalypse, and finally SMT 5. It is also where the plethora of spin-off games come from, including Persona, which spun off from SMT If, a Super Nintendo what-if scenario of the first game that I want a remake of so bad. It's literally topped my list of games I want a remake for. So Atlas, if you're watching this, please get on this. Besides Persona though, we have Digital Devil Saga, Soul Hackers, Devil Survivor, Devil Children, a Pokemon-like game, Devil Summoner, also Jack Bros, and oh, so many more. But, alright, we got the basic history out of the way, and let's get into what I think you should do depending on where you are and what you're coming for. Be that as a new fan to the series, someone who loved Persona and wants to get into SMT, someone just looking for SMT games, or just an old school gamer looking for some classic games. We'll start with the old school RPG gamer who's looking for some first person dungeon crawling experience and a more classic SMT experience while still not starting all the way back where it's a little rough to play through. And that's a pretty easy answer. I would 100% recommend Soul Hackers for the 3DS, a remake of the 1990s game on the Sega Saturn. This game is a cult classic. Soul Hackers is the perfect spot to show you old school SMT with it still being modern enough that it doesn't become painful. The game has an excellent cyberpunk aesthetic that just encapsulates the 90s sci-fi dawn of the computer age feel. The game is just cool and fun with great characters in the Spookies, and Nemissa being a fan favorite of the series. The gameplay, as I said, is first-person dungeon crawling though, and has a more traditional turn-based battle system than the future games. And if you really liked that game, I would then move to Strange Journey, as it's also a first-person dungeon crawler, but it's definitely a more modern game and frankly a lot darker than Soul Hackers. Well, now that the classics are satisfied, what about the gamer who's like, no, I just want to get into current SMT and not Persona? Because my obvious answer to enter the world of SMT is play Persona 4 first, and then go on to 5 before playing Persona 3 Remake, which releases in a week or two. But if you want to start with the latest release, play the P3 remake and then go on to 5 and work your way down. I do not recommend starting with Persona 1 or 2 as they are older games and can be harder to get into. Persona 1 is a first-person dungeon crawler, and while I love P2 Innocent Sin and Persona 2 Eternal Punishment is very loved as well, they are older and have some old-school JRPG grind and jank. Also, for those who don't know, P2 is split into 2 games, with Innocent Sin being first, then Eternal Punishment. But I do think you could play in either order, with Innocent Sin being my recommended first one of those 3 games though, just because it, frankly, I think has the best story of the 3 original games, and it's just the easiest to jump into. If you loved playing Persona 2 Innocent Sin, then play Eternal Punishment and come back to Persona 1. Because while it has its charms, it is definitely, in my opinion, the weakest of the Persona games. Now, before I go into the gamer who has already played Persona and wants to get into SMT, I'm going back to the answer of where to start just going for SMT. Well, if you have the Switch, I think it's an easy answer. It's SMT 5, the latest release, as I think it's a wonderful game that looks beautiful and plays the best of any SMT game. The combat is excellent and really engages you, making any fight feel super fun. Like, I actually enjoyed grinding unnecessarily at times because that's just how amazing the combat is. It is what I think turn-based fans have been really looking for. The story, if you go for the true ending, is also, I think, really good, but only if you go for the true secret ending, and there's some non-spoiler guides online to check out, so I highly recommend that. The story is still fun without the true ending, but it definitely feels like it's missing a lot. So, you already know I love this game. But if you want to start a little earlier or don't want other games to feel like they're missing mechanics as you work your way back down, then go for SMT3 Nocturne HD Remaster. It is on every console and is most people's first entry into SMT. It was actually my first mainline SMT game as well. I don't think you can go wrong with either choice though, as SMT Nocturne is so fun and a really atmospheric game, with you becoming no longer a normal high schooler, but the demi-fiend. But if you want the most polished, shiniest entry, go for 5. And the one game I wouldn't really recommend starting with is 4, as it's only on the 3DS, and while a ton of fun, I kind of think personally you need to already be into SMT beforehand to truly appreciate that game. With it being fun, but also taking a little longer to, in my opinion, really get fun. And 100% don't start with SMT4 Apocalypse, as it's a direct sequel companion game to 4, so it's kind of like if you play Final Fantasy X-2 and then go play Final Fantasy X, but to each their own. Now, finally, back to those who played Persona and now want to enter SMT. Now, what I said just a second ago can still apply to you, but I would actually recommend starting with Digital Devil Saga and then its sequel before moving to SMT 5 or 3. As DDS, which is what I'll be calling Digital Devil Saga, has a lot more story than most SMT games. It also has a party of the same characters throughout the game, not just random demons that you fuse away or get rid of. The story and characters of this game I find truly fascinating, and the world of the junkyard is amazing. This game is a lot darker than Persona, with everyone in this world being turned into part demons that have to devour the other inhabitants to survive. You are Surf, leader of one of 6 factions, and you and your party are striving to reach Nirvana and escape this world. The characters are so dynamic, and it is the perfect transition from Persona to SMT, and was my transition from Persona to SMT, so I highly recommend it. But if that's not exactly up your alley or you want something a little different, my second choice would be the Devil Survivor games on DS and 3DS. Now, you can start with either of these 2 games, as one is not really required before the other, and I give these as an option because they're the 2 games most like Persona in the other sub-series. See, in Devil Survivor you can engage in dialogue and bonding events to increase your relationship with characters, much in the vein of social links and confidants in the Persona series. The games have excellent fun and some of the most amazing characters that get fleshed out so well. The battle system, though, is unique for SMT, being a tactile turn-based battle system. And personally, it's one of my favorite tactical systems. In these games, you take on the role of the main character, who's trying to survive the apocalyptic disaster of demons invading your world. And for those of you wondering if I had to choose a favorite, I would pick the second game, but just barely. Both of these titles are absolutely amazing, and you won't go wrong with either. Shin Megami Tensei, though, is just a wide and varied series with plenty of amazing entries that I didn't even mention yet. And if you ever want me to cover a game or have a question on one, don't be afraid to leave a comment, as I absolutely love this series and have done reviews on many of the games, and I just think it's something you will love to get into. And with that, I'm Just History Guy. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, and share the video. It helps so much. And with that, have a wonderful day.